Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Jaguars Digital. Jaguars Digital. Jaguars Drive Time. Brian Sexton, John Oehser, Ashlyn Sullivan. Jaguars Drive Time starts right now.
And now I get a chance to start part of something great, something new, something different that we can call our own. So I'm excited about that. I think that's the most exciting thing. I want to write my own journey, my own story with an organization that truly believes in me the same way I believe in them.
One of the biggest flashes in free agency, Shaquill Griffin making you feel way better about the secondary. Arguably saying it's one of the more stronger groups on the team now because of that signing alone. As you see all of the free agents, all 12 of them walking in the building. We had 5 guys come in yesterday to wrap up the free agency period. We're going to talk all about it right here on Jaguars Drive Time, here with Brian Sexton and John Oehser. And Brian, that message that we just heard from Shaquill Griffin, I believe in coincidences, but I don't think this is one. They all kind of said the same thing, that they really believe in starting from the ground up and having something to build on. All 11 of them.
Well, I mean, players, first of all, are used to talking to coaches and taking the message and then, translating it to the media, to the fans, to the practice field. So that, I mean, there's a little bit of that goes through. But I think it's clear to everyone that everything is different here. Mm-hmm. Whatever the preconceived notions they had, and there were a lot of them about how bad this thing was, they are buying into the vision that Urban Meyer is setting. The one word that sticks out is it was genuine. When you listen to these guys, it wasn't, and you've been in the locker room plenty of times where they're just spouting what the coach says in the team meeting. That wasn't this way. The coach was able to convey a vision. They wanted to buy into the vision. They did, and they shared it in their own genuine, authentic way. Those were notes that I made. Boy, this guy too. Oh, yeah, this guy too.
Yep.
So it's interesting that they're here and that they want to be here and that they see the vision and have bought into it. And it's a testament to the fact that the vision they're selling is an attractive one. Now, don't be misled. The money is attractive also. But a lot of these guys are at a point in their career where they would like the money and to win. It makes life better.
Yes, John. Very genuine, but all kind of the same message that they want to be here and start from the ground up here.
Well, it feels genuine, and I think the reason it feels genuine is you can say all you want about the sales pitch and them liking the coaches once they got here. Most of these guys made these decisions before they had a chance to meet anybody. So obviously the Urban Meyer brand, his reputation, plus the fact they have the #1 overall draft pick, and there happens to be a quarterback sitting out there that everybody's excited about. I think that gave them the energy and the want to explore this. And then once they got here, I'm quite sure they liked what this coaching staff had to say. Everything about Urban Meyer that you've heard before he took this job was about organizational vision and culture and tone setter. So he is definitely that. So I'm not surprised at all that when they get here, they feel the energy, they feel the positive step in the right direction. Now, Brian, obviously, you've got to go do something with that. But for right now, the energy and the direction is certainly there.
Well, you know what it's like, John. You've been around teams that have changed coaches before, and there's always a blend of players who were here, and I don't want to use the word fear, but there's some trepidation. What are they going to do? How many guys are they going to move out? Are they going to make changes to the support staff that I've come to know? And there's generally sort of a grinding of teeth. What does this feel like? But this guy, this coach, this vision, this program that he's bringing in has created nothing but optimism. And you don't always get that when there's a coaching change. Yeah, you get some of it on the surface. But when you talk to guys in the elevator, walking to the car, you get a little, I'm not sure about that. I haven't got any of that yet so far. So it speaks volumes to the methodology, the process that Urban Meyer has brought in, and that everybody wants to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's bought in and bought
Brian?
in quickly. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Ashlyn. It's the closest that I've felt to 95 and 96 since 95 and 96.
Yeah.
And the reason I compare it to that is everything's so new, fresh start, head coach, draft pick, the 11 free agents, this influx of newness and out with the old. you can never repeat expansion because once you're past that, you have to have something from the old. But it's the closest to that I can remember. And frankly, this franchise needed that sort of, fresh start, reset. It's as close to it as you can possibly imagine. Sorry, Schlinn, I interrupted.
Well, just for a visual, Schlinn, if you took a whiteboard and you wrote Jags across it, they cleaned it off, right? I mean, they cleaned it off, and they're starting over. So here we go.
I think John's getting his whiteboard ready. He's always ready for Whiteboard Wednesday, even though it's Tuesday. There he goes. There goes that man. Nice. Visual. Nice. All right, here we go. Big thing. Big thing one is it starts up front. Coach Meyer on Friday said that he wants big guys on this defensive line, and he did just that in free agency, adding 4 defensive linemen, and expects it to be one of the strengths of the team, and you could not say that last year. So let's hear from one of the new guys right now.
As a defensive lineman, it always starts up front, but the main thing is, like I said again, is about brotherhood. You know what I mean? As the D-line, you got to rush. You got to have good communication with our rushes, and also dominating up front, setting the edge, setting the vertical edge, and basically getting vertical and stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? Once we have good connections with there, you know what I mean? I think we have a dominant D-lineman as I look at this roster that we got going on. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm so excited about this whole group of men that we have coming on board. Like, there's nothing to really explain, you know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and be happy about it now. It's inside me, so, you know what I mean? I'm just excited, man, and I'm ready to go.
That is defensive and outside linebacker Jihad Ward coming from the Baltimore Ravens. Excited to be here. Now let's go to big thing 2, which is a point of emphasis. Coach Meyer has only been here a couple of months, but we've heard him say, I want this team to play fast, probably like 20 times or so. So it's a big deal. And he definitely stressed that message in free agency, adding some offensive weapons, mirroring that message. The fastest guy might be this guy.
It feels good, obviously because I'm still here and I'm still playing at the top of my game. So, just like I just met everybody, met the young receivers, and they didn't know I was 31. So they were like, "Man, you look like us." I'm like, "Yeah, I said so. I'll show you the way. I'll show you how to get there." So I'm here. I'm here to be that mentor, and for them to follow. For them to follow me, I love that, and I love that type of pressure, and so it feels good.
That was Marvin Jones, who joked that, yes, he is the oldest in the wide receiver room right now, but looks the youngest. Let's go to big thing 3, which is own it in the Jaguars free agency period. All 12 of them spoke about what we kind of talked about at the top of the show, which was, I want to be part of something from building the ground up, but more so, it was pretty optimistic and honestly surprising to hear how quickly they have bought into Coach Meyer's message.
Like I said, I was ecstatic, man. I heard what coaches were here and what direction they were going in, and like I said, I was happy. I mean, I already knew the situation that I was in over in New Orleans. I already knew they had to get under the cap space. I already knew it was over. So, I mean, just doing that, keeping that in mind, I just went to attack the offseason. Like, wherever I'm going to be, I'm get the best version of me. And like I said, when the trade happened, I was on the phone. I was happy. I was running around the house, I mean, it doesn't matter what the program was last year. It's about what we do next year. So,
retweet all about what happens next year. That was Malcolm Brown. You heard all from those Jaguars free agents. And you can't fix everything right away, John, but it's clear that the 2 things Coach Meyer really wanted to fix was 1, defensive line, check, and 2, adding more speed, adding more weapons, and he did that last week.
Well, I was intrigued by Malcolm Brown talking about the best version of me. Do you guys think there's hope for me?
No.
Is there a better version of me sitting out there, Brian?
This is the best.
You have always told us there isn't, John, so I don't know why we would think there might possibly be.
So maybe that gives me some sort of hope. But defensive line was without question the thing they had to fix. And they had a little bit of a dilemma there, I think, because when you looked at the draft, there isn't a great defensive line draft, and you're going to improve significantly that next year off of your defensive line anyway out of the draft. So they had to go get players. They had to find a right mix, and they didn't want to spend everything on high-profile guys. So the Malcolm Brown trade, to me, is the key to this free agency period. They went and got him. They didn't give up a lot of draft equity. All of a sudden, you can put him with a Tyson Alualu, who is a very good run defender. I'm sorry, I'm making up new words. But they needed to get stouter on the defensive front. With those two picks, they did it. And obviously, they got faster. In the secondary, they got better. Philip Dorsett, who was a first-round pick back in, I think, 15 or 16, at wide receiver, hasn't been as productive as he would have hoped for a first-round pick, but he is a fast impact guy like they're talking their needs. So within the context of what they wanted to do, they didn't want to spend that top-of-the-market money at every position. They got done what they wanted to get done.
You know, it's interesting. If I say to you that the Jaguars could be 8-8 this fall, do you think I'm crazy?
No.
I mean, that would seem to be, though. I mean, if I said 9-7, it'd be, whoa, hold on, right? But if you say 8-8, people can see that. Mm-hmm. Well, so when you look at what they spend, I'm looking right now at Spot Track, which is the service that I use for following salary cap, and the Jaguars are at number 1 in terms of salary cap room, even though they signed those 12 guys. Mm-hmm. Okay, which tells you, if you're only going to be if you think 8-8 is probably a reasonable or maybe a bit of a reach in the first year with all this change, why would you go out and swing for the fences for some of these big dollar players and use a year or two of their career, right, of their premium earning years? I wouldn't do it. I mean, their strategy of finding guys that fit holes, that fit experience, that fit a place in the locker room, seems to me to be a really wise approach towards using the salary space with an eye towards the future. And I know it's going to explode with the TV deals and 2023 and all of that, but I really appreciate their approach. It's different than what we've seen here in the past. They've brought in players that fit where they are, that can help them get to where they want to be. And hopefully they've drafted players then that they pay with the premium dollars.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean,
and Schlin, I'm sorry. I think Urban Meyer gave you a little insight into that Friday, and he didn't really expand on it, but he said at the end of one of his answers about not quite being there yet in terms of going out. I think he used the phrase $25 million guy.
Exactly.
And said they're not there yet. And so, yes, they are never going to say, hey, we're not trying to win the Super Bowl this year. But there's a realistic approach of where they're at year one, where they wanted to be in the build, maximize that, and then move on after that and maybe have that high-impact, high-dollar guy. It's clear that Brian and Schlin, they looked at this roster and said, we've got to get better in a lot of places. We can't just get better in one spot and spend $80 million on this spot and leave a bunch of other spots not fulfilled.
Well, I do think
they felt like they needed work to do to get back to a level.
It's worth pointing out that just because a guy isn't a high-dollar guy, isn't the 10 or 15 or $25 million a year player, that they can't contribute at a high level, right?
Yeah.
That a Marvin Jones or a Malcolm Brown can't come in, or a Shaquille Griffin, and compete and perform at a really high level. It's just that the Jaguars were, and it's a bet, right? I mean, you're placing bets on guys that fit, that come in and they produce. They placed smart bets on smart level players to come in and help them where they are right now. And I just want to underscore it again. If they do this right and they draft right, then in 3 years, they're starting to use their salary cap room to keep their own players.
Yes.
That is key.
Yeah.
Critical to be able to do that.
Yeah. You want to be able to re-sign the Josh Allens, the DJ Charks. That's going to have to happen one day. You want to keep those guys here.
You have to have some understanding of how the salary cap impacts your roster building, okay? And if you do, you can see in these moves how the Jaguars are setting themselves up for success 3, 5, 7 years down the road. Yeah. That's so critical.
It is. And frankly, the home run swings of free agency, the Jaguars and the Jets have spent the most money in free agency. They're the worst records in football. History shows that's not the way to do it. So Nothing wrong with taking a more conservative approach this season. When we come back on Jaguars Drive Time, what did we learn this past week in free agency? Next, right here on the Jaguars Digital Network.
Jags Drive Time is presented in part by TIAA Bank. Created to serve, built to perform. By Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. And Baptist Health, changing healthcare for good.
Any repeated physical activity puts stress on the body. Checking your phone, getting in the car, sitting at your desk. Checking the phone, getting in your car, sitting at your desk. Checking your phone for the 50th time today. If you do anything with regularity, you should get massaged with regularity. Massage Envy. Keep your body working.
Regular body work makes the body work with Massage Skincare. Today for more information or visit massageenvy.com for more details.
Forever Vets Animal Hospital has always been about helping animals with same-day appointments, walk-ins, and extended hours. Keeping your pets healthy is important to their experienced and dedicated staff. From preventive care, surgical, diagnostic, and emergency procedures, they offer quality pet care at a reasonable cost. Your pets deserve the best, and that's Forever Vets. Visit forevervets.com to learn more and book your first free office exam today. They can't wait to have you as a part of the Forever Vets family.
You won't find a better deal to keep your ride clean than Scrubble's Flexible Service Car Wash. Start in the tunnel wash and experience state-of-the-art equipment while enjoying a soapy light show. Our quality soaps and solutions keep your vehicle streak-free. Every 3-minute car wash package comes with self-serve vacuuming, lint-free towels, window cleaner, and a free air freshener. Visit us at the St. John's Town Center, Fleming Island, and Atlantic Beach. And coming soon to Kernan and Atlantic. Trust the bow tie. You'll know quality once you arrive. Go Jags!
Welcome to a new era of Jaguars football. The reload has begun, beginning with new head coach Urban Meyer. Don't miss out on the best seats before they're gone. Lock in your tickets now for the 2021 season by placing a deposit at Jaguars.com. We're back, Jaguars Drive Time, Tuesday morning. Free agency frenzy has settled a little bit. This is the first day where everyone can take a breath, but we have to divulge. Look into. I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of it. What we learned.
You're having a senior moment, Shan.
Yeah, this past
Welcome to John and I's world.
Of free agency. We learned a lot. We had a lot of questions, but we have 3 things we want to discuss. Brian's up first.
Forget numbers for a second. Forget how many yards they allowed per game. Forget where they ranked. Remember what your eyes showed you when you watched the Jaguars secondary last year, and go back to opening day and the opening drive, and Phillip Rivers is attacking the middle of the field, and you've got a rookie out there in C.J. Henderson who had a pretty good game that day. But the Jaguars secondary last year, if you recall, was porous. There was and then they were injured, and they were bringing in guys, and it was a mess. In 1 week's time, the potential for this to be the strength on defense is really, it's way up high. And they haven't even used a draft pick yet. And I think John would tell you he expects that there's a safety or a cornerback somewhere, in the first 45 picks. The Jaguars have 1, 25, 33, and 45. And neither of us, any of us, wouldn't be surprised if there was a member added to that secondary. So the addition of Rashawn Jenkins at safety, and next to Daniel Thomas, who I think he's really going to be a very good player. You put C.J. Henderson back out on the field with Shaquille Griffin, and all of a sudden now you're really solid. Mm-hmm. And that's Trey Herndon moving in and playing nickel. He was pretty good that role a couple of years ago. You expect a draft pick to get added here, safety or corner, you choose. Look, the Jaguars' pass rush, John, wasn't going to be good last year because you had cast off Yannick Ngakoue and Calais Campbell, and Josh Allen was going to take all of the attention until Kayvon Chaisson could start to emerge. But by the time that Kayvon Chaisson emerged, Josh Allen was hurt, and the secondary was in tatters. So the whole thing was just a dumpster fire last year on that side of the ball. Now you've got something that can hold up its end of the bargain and get Josh Allen and Kayvon Chaisson up front and give them time to get after the quarterback. The secondary is the part where I look and go, man, they got a lot of really good work done there.
Yeah, the safety they signed, Rayshon Jenkins, talked last week about his flexibility, and he can play a lot of different situations back there. Sort of makes you wonder if safety is not in the cards in that top, 45, 65. They have 5 of the top 65. So you wonder about that. I agree, Brian. It's become a strength. Hopefully, for the secondary's sake, what they have done on the defensive line allows them to be stouter against the run, which will allow that pass rush to be much better. To me, that is the key for this secondary, making sure the front is better so that the secondary doesn't have to cover for 6 seconds. It can cover for 4.5. So the guys back there now are capable of playing at a high level if the front does its job. And that's good news because it has to be intertwined. That's the sign language for intertwined.
There is another level in your game, John. I mean, the best version of yourself is still out there when you can teach.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Bringing it this morning.
All right.
Don't mess with that, man. But yes, it fixed rather quickly. I remember saying on the Jaguars Reporters podcast before free agency opened, I'm really worried about this secondary. I don't know if it can be fixed in 1 year. I remember saying that. I'm thinking, this isn't going to be fixed until next season. There's no way. And now I feel so much better.
It is better. I don't know that you can say it's fixed until they play, but you can look and say that they are a much better unit. There are pieces there to be able to play the game at a much higher level. Think of chess.
All right, so what I learned, I'll go next for this segment, is Urban Meyer has said how important connections are to him. Connections rule the world. Didn't we know that? Well, look at this. All of these tie-ins for free agents that the Jaguars brought in previously played for the coaches next to them on the Jaguars coaching staff. I really like this because Coach Meyer came in here and said, I'm going to trust my staff. Admitted I don't know it all when it comes to the NFL. This is my first time doing this. So listening to all of these coaches, Brian, that have really strong opinions about the guys they brought in. For example, Charlie Strong is a great one who previously coached Malcolm Brown at Texas. That's a connection that goes way back, and Coach Meyer might not know a lot about this guy, but boom, he's a key contributor now.
Well, and Coach Meyer went out of his way to point out Jihad Ward on Friday when he spoke, and that Joe Cullen, while watching the tape together, just kept pointing to the kind of player he wanted. And you hear all the time about players that coaches know that they have experience with that help them bring their system in, but it goes a level above here. We keep using the word culture, and that's what Urban Meyer is building. A guy like Jihad Ward brings culture because Joe Cullen knows how things get done, and this guy knows how Joe wants it to get done. So all of these guys are key pieces on the field, but also in the locker room.
Yeah, Jihad Ward was a guy, John, he left his press conference and I thought, this is an intense guy that knows exactly what he wants the Jaguars defense to look. He came in here and you want to talk about own it, he owned it that day.
Well, you can certainly see why Joe Cullen wants the guy and why he wants to play for Joe Cullen. I also think we included Tyson Alualu on that graphic. I've got to think Joe banged the table for Tyson Alualu too, saying, look, Urban, I know this guy is in his 11th year, but he's a guy that I had here for 3 years in Jacksonville. I know what he's about. He will show the rest of the defensive line, if they don't know already, how to work and be a pro and approach the game. And yeah, I mean, Urban made clear on multiple occasions that because of the nature of this free agency period, they were going to have to lean on connections even more so than usual, and that it made him nervous to bring in guys that he didn't know. And I think there's a lot of merit to that approach, because especially when you're building it, you don't want guys who you have to bring in and learn what you're doing. You want guys who can come in right away and know what you're about. And percentage-wise, they got a lot of guys who that is the case with.
Absolutely, John. And we said at the top of the show, they can't fix everything right here, right now in free agency. There are still some holes, but luckily, there's a draft coming up for that.
Well, and the thing I learned was that, and this is a little bit of interpretation and trying to read tea leaves, but it looks like what they did in free agency very much leaves them a spot to build their skill weapons through the draft. without having to depend on all those skill weapons as rookies. And what I mean by that is you could easily see the way this thing's laid out. Running back, impact receiver, tight end. I think they might draft a quarterback in the first top 65. You could see theoretically 3, maybe even 4 of those guys. Running back, they wouldn't necessarily have to take in the top 65 to get impact. But you could see 4 rookies at those spots playing different roles next year. Wide receiver, running back wouldn't have to carry the load immediately. They could start sliding in. They always say, buy your defense and draft your offense. Part of drafting the offense is having to develop those guys in this league. You could see this draft coming up in 2022, you having 4 impact offensive players out of this draft class because they've left themselves room to do it.
They've left themselves room to do whatever they want. I mean, they really are in a position on draft day to be able to take the best player on the board at any position. And you know how it works. There's generally 2 or 3 guys that they're looking at, and the grades are similar, and they're going to be able to make that choice. Well, hey, coach, I need the defensive tackle. Hey, coach, I need the offensive tackle, whatever. And they're going to be able to say, as John just said, let's take the wide receiver, right? Whatever it is, the best player available, they have choices because they've done a thorough and solid job free agency.
Yeah. Colin Johnson is a great example of that. Someone that has made some splashes, but I think we all can expect in 2 years from now, he is an impact player and has room to develop with that draft pick. So, good point, John. When we come back, all kinds of things right here on Jaguars Drive Time. Stick with us.
Jags Drive Time is presented in part by Dreamfinders Homes, homes that fit your lifestyle. NEXGRILL, everyone's invited. And Adecco. Visit ADECOUSA.com.
On the road, there's a thin line between safety and tragedy. Don't cross it. Give law enforcement, first responders, and service professionals the space to safely do their jobs. When you see flashing lights, move over a lane or slow down 20 miles per hour below the posted speed limit. See lights? Move over, Florida. Brought to you by the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles and the Florida Highway Patrol.
Jaguars fans, let's tackle social injustice together on game days with Selfies for Change. Visit TIAABank.com/selfies for change to take a virtual selfie with a Jaguars player and unlock a $5 donation to the Jaguars Foundation to help fight social injustice. Share your photo on Instagram or Twitter using hashtag Selfies for Change so more fans can be part of the movement. Join us on game days at TIAABank.com/selfies for change. TIAA Bank is the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Headquartered right here in Jacksonville, CSI Companies is one of the fastest growing staffing firms in the nation. As a proud partner of your Jacksonville Jaguars, CSI knows how important it is to find the right people for your team. See why some of Jacksonville's top companies choose CSI for their staffing needs. Visit CSICompanies.com or call 800-582-0828 today. That's 800-582-0828 for CSI Companies.
We're back, Jaguars Drive Time Tuesday morning, brought to you by the Jet HomeLoans. A very busy week of free agency. We were busy here in Jacksonville, but not as busy as this guy. ESPN NFL insider Field Yates joins us right now. Field, thank you for waking up with us.
It's been a nice, productive week over the past 7 or 8 days down there in Jacksonville.
Yes, it has, and that is my first question. I think I want to say some of us expected almost a home run free agency with Coach Meyer's personality. We thought, they're going to spend a ton of money and get a ton of big names, and it was the opposite. It was more of a conservative approach, getting 12 guys all with needs, but Field, that kind of seems like the way that NFL is going is you build more so through the draft, and free agency at times, history shown, hasn't worked. It's not worth all that money at times.
Yeah, I think it's really important to start here with free agency. And I would say the offseason in general is that you need to be honest about your timeline in the NFL, because the more honest you are, the better your process and in turn, the results will be. So the Jaguars had, if memory is correct, somewhere around $80 million at the start of the new league year, or whenever the legal tampering period actually began, which is as much money as anybody in the NFL. We know they have tons of draft capital. They aren't shopping for a quarterback this offseason, which is always the most expensive position in free agency. They'll be shopping for that quarterback in the draft, of course. But just because you have the ability to spend does not give you the license to spend as much as you have available. And if you're Jacksonville, there's no doubt in my mind this team's going to be improved next year. There's no doubt in my mind that over the next 5 or 7 years, they're going to be a franchise that other teams are envious of because of the nucleus of talent they're going to build around presumptive #1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence. But if you just go big and spend in free agency because you're buying players usually at the prime of their career, where I'm not saying things just dramatically go downhill right away, but by the end of the contract, 4 years from now, those guys might be on the back end of their best ability. If you just spend a ton of money in free agency relentlessly during the first year of the Trevor Lawrence experience, you may not be sort of tying in your ascension with his ascension. That isn't to say that rookies can't play really well. We saw it from Justin Herbert last year, and we've seen young quarterbacks have a lot of success. But this is not a one-year plan that Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke are endeavoring into right now. They're endeavoring into a long-term plan. They improved in free agency, but they've also preserved a ton of resources. They're going to be incredibly valuable going forward.
You know, Fields, what I thought was interesting was, especially on day one, there were some big dollar free agent contracts that were thrown out there, but it wasn't like in years past where you saw all the big names attached to teams really quickly. There were a lot of mid-level guys whose names were put out there in the news as having agreed to contracts. And I get it. Part of that was the contraction of the salary cap. But it seems to me like teams going forward are going to want to look at those solid mid-level guys because at least they can come in and not kill your cap if it doesn't work. Guys who are good players that fit roles might be the future of free agency.
Yeah, it's possible we trend a little bit more that direction. And, the franchise tag almost always takes off, let's say, the top 3 to 5, maybe even 7 or 10 best players that would be free agents, depending on the year. So you're already sort of swimming in a shallower pool of talent than the contracts would suggest. But here's what I would say, is that I think what tends to happen around this time of the year, and especially right after the Super Bowl, is we assign what team building looks like. And usually we say, whatever the Super Bowl winner did is what the rest of the league is going to in turn try to emulate. And no doubt that the Buccaneers are the kings of the NFL right now. They drafted exceptionally well over the past 5 to 7 years. It was a team that had not had a lot of success on the field. So these past 4 to 5 years, they were frequently picking at or near the top of the draft order. And the fact that Tom Brady became available in free agency obviously made things very unique and different for them. So this is a roundabout way of saying that, some people believe paying big in free agency is risky business. And there have been deals that have aged incredibly poorly, but there have also been deals like Tom Brady for $25 million per year last year. And I get it, he's a quarterback, but there have been other deals that have worked out incredibly well for teams who have paid big in the offseason, and it's worked out. I understand he is now playing elsewhere, but Calais Campbell's a great example in Jacksonville of a guy who he cost a lot, but I think he was, if anything, maybe even a discount relative to his price tag. So maybe teams will try to shop a little bit more on the bargain side going forward. But I do think there's probably almost always going to be a market for those elite players. It's a matter of how much patience they have. As we saw with Kenny Golladay, the wide receiver who continued to stand his ground and believe that he was going to get paid #1 wide receiver money. Well, other players went off the board, some of them taking 1-year deals, some of them taking what many believe are below market deals. And next thing you know, you've got Kenny Golladay getting 4 years and $72 million. So free agency is always going to be a little bit of a unique exercise from 1 year to the next.
This has been such an unusual off season because of the after effects of COVID, obviously, on the cap. How do you see next off season being impacted by what happened this year, just league wide? Salaries exploding?
Yeah, I think.
Or is it too early to kind of figure that out?
I think so. First of all, the fact that we have this new NFL television deal in place is phenomenal news for everybody, fans especially, but for players, no doubt. and everybody involved. I mean, the league, owners, management, you name it. Everybody's excited about this new deal. It's a ton of money, and what it means is the cap is going to eventually rise in a notable manner. Now, it's not just going to next year go from 182.5 where it is now to like 250 million next year. But I can't envision a scenario, and I hate to even throw this into the universe, but the salary cap's going up, right? I can't even think of something that would cause it to go anywhere but up. And it might be closer to where it was last season, 198.5 million in 2022. It might be a little bit higher. And as the salary cap goes up and as the league kind of gets its bearings back, and that's of no fault of its own, and we all are dealing with COVID and it's hit us all differently. As that continues to take place, run its course, I think what you're going to see is projecting higher and higher salary caps year over year. And I think one of the dynamics that this year wasn't in play as much because of the salary cap dropping as much as it did, but is always worth keeping in mind when it comes to free agency, is that even if logic may suggest to you or anecdotal evidence shows you that paying big on players in free agency comes with some risks, is that NFL owners have shown themselves frequently to be impatient. And if you're a general manager who might be facing a make or break year in the upcoming season, even if you know at your core that a deal could be risky business, you may not have a choice. You may say the alternative is to miss out on these players and not have them available and potentially regress the win-loss column, which could be the difference between keeping your job and not having your job any longer. So I do think in future years, we'll see the cap rise, and I think that could result in more of what we were just talking about, the elite players getting paid at an elite level.
Very good point. Seems to be that this is going to be exciting off seasons to come here in the NFL. Field Yates, thank you so much for joining us here on Jags Drive Time.
Of course, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, Fields.
You too. Thank you very much. When we come up beyond number one, looking at the NFL draft coming up here on Jaguars Drive Time.
Committed to the team. Committed to the mission. At Navy Mutual, we're committed to providing high-quality life insurance to members of the military and their families. So our policies have no fine print and no military service restrictions. We don't work on commission. We're nonprofit, so we pass the savings along to our members. Because at Navy Mutual, our highest commitment is to you. Visit NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
The reload has begun, and the time for talk is over.
When you grab a seat in this beautiful stadium, you're going to see a team play really fast. I want a team that plays fearless.
Visit Jaguars.com to renew your season tickets and join head coach Urban Meyer for a new era of Jaguars football. Already a season ticket member? Renew your tickets by April 9th and guarantee your seat selection. We'll see you at the bank.
The best thing about working at FARAH is all of the employees. We all work together. It's extremely enjoyable to come to work every day.
There's a common cause or goal. No matter what your job is, we're all there for the client.
We are dedicated to our clients 100%. We do everything it takes to maximize the value of their claims.
FARAH is really the FARAH family. When they choose us, they choose a family to fight for them and to protect them and to make sure that they're in a good place and that they have somebody on their side.
FARAH. Here for you, here for good. Jacksonville.
Back for one last segment, Jaguars Drive Time, brought to you by Jet HomeLoans. The NFL draft coming up very quickly, and something that was a bit of an uproar last week in free agency was the lack of signing the big-time, flashy tight end. The good news is there are available draft prospects for tight end position, so let's take a look at that right now for beyond number one. The Jaguars did sign Chris Manhertz, but more so a blocking tight end, so here are the top 4 prospects of tight ends in the NFL draft. I just looked at Daniel Jeremiah's updated mock draft, John, and Kyle Pitts, number 1 at Florida. Rather interesting. They have him going as high as 6 to the Eagles. So you can trade up, but you might have to just cross that guy off the list here.
Yeah, look, you're not trading up for Pitts.
Ah.
Jeremiah, many draft analysts believe this guy might be the best prospect in the draft. I'm gonna lean toward the quarterback, but he's at least in that conversation in terms of position. There are people who think he might be in the top 5. If it happens, great, but I don't think you can build around or assume what's going to happen around that possibility. I would be surprised if somewhere in that 25 to 65, the tight end isn't heavily addressed. And look, it's a brutally tough spot to find. There's not a lot of them. Even the ones who are available free agency, frankly, I wasn't that excited about them. If you looked at it, it was either injuries or not as much production history as you would have wanted for what you were going to pay. I'm not saying the Jaguars weren't interested in them, but they didn't miss out on elite guys in free agency. They missed out on guys who might make them better, but at the price, I wasn't sure about that. So I think they will go. Freiermuth makes sense because his position coach in college is position coach of the Jaguars now. Mm-hmm. There are some connections there, but we have to see how the draft plays out to see if those connections get made.
He fits. I mean, I've said it before. He fits because Tyler Bowen is here. He fits there at 33 or 45. Maybe the Jaguars have to take him at 25, depending on how they see the draft unfolding. But they're going to address it. They've got to have a player like that in the middle of the field. And this guy, if you watch him, and of course now you can watch tape. You go on YouTube and watch Penn State. Find highlight tapes too. He's a big body, and he knows how to play the middle of the field. I think he's perfect, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the pick at 25, because there may be guys, other teams interested in him also.
Yes, we just talked on the show all about connections. We saw all the picks.
You saw that list, yeah.
You can connect the dots there. And 25, I get it. That seems high right now, but really right now in the tight end room, you have James O'Shaughnessy as your pass.
I don't think it seems high anymore. I mean, you look at the interesting part about Pitts. They call him a tweener, right? Because is he a tight end or is he really just a really big receiver?
Big dude.
2 or 3 years ago, we saw the two tight ends from Iowa both go in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
No, 25 is not too high for a difference-making tight end. You just heard John say these guys are very difficult to find.
Yeah.
If the guy is there, take him.
And once that run starts, it starts, and you don't want to be on the losing side of that. All right, beyond number 1, tight end. Pay attention to it now. It is March and it is Women's History Month, and every week we're highlighting some awesome females here for the Jaguars organization. So let's add one more to the list, Tanisha Tate, who is the Vice President of Social Responsibility and Impact. Take it away.
Having women in positions where we add to the decision-making process, we lead in areas of legal, finance, community, it just makes us better. Everything you do has to be intentional. So when you're looking at programming, when you're looking at internship opportunities to bring people in, you just have to be open and intentional about making sure that you're allowing that space to bring in the best diverse candidates that really represent what we look like as an organization, as a franchise, and most importantly, as a city. Even growing up here in Jacksonville, as a Black female, I didn't know to aspire to be in this position because I didn't know that this position existed or that there was a such thing as sports philanthropy. So I also think when we see teams, we see us really highlighting what all of these open positions are, having you out on the sideline on Sunday, all of that becomes very inspirational. So now in our fan base, regardless of color, when we see those females that are at home, that are young, now they know, like, I can do that. I didn't know that I could put this on my dream list, and now I can.
Awesome conversation with Tanisha Tate, and she is just one of the females that we're highlighting for Women's History Month here in March, and it is not over. Stay tuned next week, and thank you for watching Jags Jaguars Drive Time. Stay with us on Jaguars.com. We'll see you next time.